Hello dear students! How are you doing today? Welcome back to our online math class with Teacher Ray. Before we start, please prepare the following: your textbook, your pen, and your copybook. Now, this time, I want you to open your book on page 699. Lesson 12.1. The title is Analyze Line Plots. For today's lesson, you are expected to be able to define data, line plot, and outlier. Read and analyze line plots. Let's start our lesson by unlocking the vocabulary terms that we will use in the lesson. So our terms are data, line plot, and outlier. Our first term is data. It is defined as collected information. Here are some examples of data. So we have table, pie graph, and bar graph. Next, we have line plot. A display of responses along a number line with dot or X recorded above the responses to indicate the number of times a response occurred. So here's an example of line plot. And our last term is outlier. A value that is much greater or much less than the other values in a data set. So in this example, our outlier is the greatest value.
The essential understanding for this lesson is: line plots are one way to organize and represent numerical data collected in a survey. You can use line plots to answer questions about a data set. Previously, students recorded measurement data in line plots with whole number and fractional units. They also analyzed the data displayed in line plots to answer questions about the data. In this lesson, they extend their work to answering more complex questions about data displayed in line plots.
Several students were asked how many blocks they walk from home to school each day. The results are shown in the line plot. How many students were asked the question? Use the line plot to solve this problem.
Let us answer, solve, and share. The problem is asking you how many students were asked the question. Let us use the line plot to solve the problem. So the title of our line plot is Distance from Home to School. Make sense and persevere. How can you analyze data in a line plot? Show your work. So let us make a table with two columns. Blocks walk is 1 to 7, and we will now count the number of students. So here in our plot or line plot, the dots represents 1 student. Okay, let's start counting. So in 1, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's 4 students. Next, for 2, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 also. For 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, we have 1, 2. For 6, nothing, so that's 0. And for 7, we have 1. Now let's add all the number of students that we have. 5 plus 5 is 10. 8 plus 2 is also 10. 10 plus 10, 20, plus 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25 students were asked the question. Next question. What can you tell about the distance most of the students in a group walk to school each day? Most of the students walk fewer than 5 blocks to school from home, and most of the students live close to school.
How can you analyze data displayed in a line plot? A line plot, or dot plot, shows data along a number line. Each dot, or X, represents one value in the data set. In science class, Abby and her classmates performed an experiment in which they used different amounts of vinegar. The table shows how much vinegar each person used.
Wow, science is fun!
Why would you make a data table? What kind of information is recorded in the data table? You make a data table to organize and record information. This data table shows the cups of vinegar used by each person in an experiment. A line plot shows how often each value occurs. This line plot can be used to organize the amount of vinegar each person used. Read the line plot. What do the columns of dots represent? The columns of dots represent the amount of vinegar each student used. How many students took part in the experiment?
Select your answer.
"21 students took part in the experiment." Analyze the data. Identify any outliers. An outlier is any value that is very different from the rest of the values. What is the outlier in the data set? The dot above 3 is far from the rest of the dots in the line plot, so 3 is an outlier in this data set. Now you know how to analyze data displayed in a line plot.
Let us review the video about the essential question, how can you analyze data displayed in the line plot? A line plot or dot plot shows data along a number line. Each dot or X represents one value in the data set. A line plot shows how often each value occurs. This table represents a data. So it shows how much vinegar each student used in their experiment. A line plot can be used to organize the amount of vinegar each person used. So as you have seen from the previous slide, the data in the table is not organized. That's why we need to use a line plot to organize the data. Here we have a number line that is divided into parts, and each part is represented by the cups of vinegar that each student used. And the dots represents one student that performed the experiment. Identify any outliers. An outlier is any value that is very different from the rest of the values. The dot above 3 is far from the rest of the dots. This value is an outlier. So here, as you can see, all these dots are together, and this dot above 3 is so far among the rest. So this dot is what we call the outlier.
How does the line plot show which amount of vinegar was used most often in this experiment?
Let us answer convince me. Again, the question, how does the line plot show which amount of vinegar was used most often in this experiment? The value of 1 has the most dots above it, which means that 1 cup of vinegar was used most often. Now let us answer the guided practice. Number 1, what is an outlier in a set of data? A value that is very different from the other values. Number 2, in the line plot on the previous page, do any values occur the same number of times? Explain. Yes, 1/2 and 1/2 occur the same number of times. Both values have 2 dots above them. Describe any patterns in the line plot on the previous page. Most of the dots are between 1/2 and 1/2. In 4 and 5, use the data set to answer the questions. Number 4, Mr. Rice's students ran a 40-yard dash in the following times in seconds: 6.8, 7.3, 7.1, 7.0, 7.2, 7.3, 7.0, 6.9, 6.9, 7.1, 7.1, 7.2, 7.1, 7.0, 7.1, and 7.2. Question: how many race times are recorded? So let us count the race times that we have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So that's 16 race times. Number 5, use the line plot that shows the data. Which time occurred most often? So this part has the greatest number of dots. So the time that occurred most often is 7.1 seconds. Now, it's time to answer your independent practice and problem-solving exercises. Please solve and answer independent practice, page 701, problem-solving number 11 and 14, page 702, and item numbers 2, 4, 7, and 11 in page 703 to 704. We will check your answers in my next video.